Hey, good afternoon, Prophet Frederick Delaney here. Just try to give you a little bit more information. So the prime directive was given, and they were disclosing all this. As long as they told everybody it was fiction, they could say anything, they could tell any truth they want, as long as they told them it was fiction. Otherwise, they'd be killed by the satanic leadership, the Nephilim, the Caesarian, the gangsters. So the prime directive, they said that they were not allowed to interfere with the natural course of the planet, unless an evil entity, even evil extraterrestrial that was not of that planet, was interfering and corrupting. Then they were allowed to come in to try to give balance. So all the stuff on Star Trek, first generation, second generation, all the disclosure, the Jedi's, and all that is always about us. It's always about earthlings, earth. All the revelation, the go where no man has gone before, no spirit man. No man can see God and live as a natural man anymore. Some of them would be vaporized because they couldn't handle it. Because God respects your fears. You know, you might have to be locked up, put you on whatever medication. So the disclosure. So the interference. So it's always about Earth, because this is the planet that is considered the first heaven, because this is where the revelation of everything, the galaxies, the universes. What are you getting into over there? Grandson's out here with me. Try to keep him from getting into stuff. But he's very inquisitive. He's old boy. Take stuff apart, hide stuff from you. He won't find it for a month. so disclosure, to find the revelation in this time, all you got to do is go back in time. The A's on the lapels, we talked about the Alliance of Planets. They call it the Federation. So it's a Galactic Federation, Alliance of Planets, the Interplanetary Alliance, the Alliance of the Galaxies. So there's like 87% that wish no harm. There's like 2 to 3%, because it's always about 3.5, just under 3 sometimes 4. Because you hear all this in the Bible, you read all this in the Bible, for 3 and 4 generations, whole generation had to die off. And for 3 and 4, I believe it's an Joel Amos. I will not hold back my wrath. So there's a small percentage point that could be up to 3.5, not 4%, because 4 means foundation. So it has to be less than, in order to combat the enemy and the lies. So in the Genesis, when the flaming swords, God put the angels with flaming swords to keep the way lit back to the tree of life, because they partook of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. But if they would have partaken of the tree of life, they would have understand the balance of good and evil. Because now you have the ones that fall in the ditch, the trees bearing good and bad fruit, which is us. They ought not to bear good and bad fruit. So the angels, so they're kicked out of the garden, but they have the revelation was there to find your way back. So the flaming swords, the saber swords, the candlesticks, the 2, which always means witnesses, to find the way back to the tree of life. So we will not be consumed in lies, because lies cause sin and death. The sin causes death. The lies within you cause death. The sinner, like we talked about, Satan is the sin that lies within. He's the one who speaks. People entertain the lies and become sinners and are enslaved. So, the simplicity of the good news has not been talked about out there in the massive airways, like we talked about. We're under wraps, like a little man here behind me. He's still just wrapped up in his jammies, but he doesn't have the blanket today, so he's undercover. So we're undercover because many have to be deceived, much has to be deceived and not disclosed for the multitudes. But then there's the ones that says that almost the elect would almost the elect be deceived, but it doesn't say they're deceived, but it says that's how the deceivement has to go all the way up to the brains of the multitudes. And like I said, we're carnal minded, and we read a spiritual books with a carnal mind, and that is the biggest issue. It's just like Job, when Job went through all the hell because he was codependent with his children, symbolic of throwing pillows to the butts by sacrificing doves and whatever, just in case the children were sinning. So then in the end, he was restored. So it doesn't say exactly how that happened. Did he get a new wife and new kids? Or did God just blink and his whole family was there and they were different? Because once understood the revelation of God, that God is daddy, we're just as dumb little kids. And now's not a time to be dumb and stupid, because people perish for lack of knowledge. So we're trying to get the knowledge out there, but it's not for everybody to partake. And I mean, you can take it and eat it, or you can chuck it overboard, or you can just cut the video off. It's not up to me to wake you up. It's up to God to wake you up. And therefore, I should just be echoing what you already know. It's like an echo. Hello, 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 hello. Like when you're in the mountains, echo in the valley. So what I shout from the rooftops, from the third heaven that I receive from, and then I shout onto the first, into this realm. Disclosure. So they've been going into the future. They've been going into the future to disclose the future corruption in order to do something about it in this present time, which is time is past, corrupt time, which is, like I say, it's kind of hard to discern that I do not reside in, live in corrupt time. I don't reside in the church age. I reside in the kingdom age. But then again, this meat suit is here to speak forth in this time to help the people to understand in the present time, everything has changed now. If you believe, if you receive, if you conceive, if you speak, if you pray, if you agree, then everything changes past, present, future. And we talked about Jesus was slain before the foundation of the earth. So it's like a retro time. To reinstall before time, after time, the Alpha and Omega, from the beginning to the end, from the end to the beginning. If you read the whole book, and then you start reading it backwards, in this time, then you start uncovering. So it's like, imagine this, like we'll look at a Michelangelo picture, right? I show you this picture, this awesome picture. And you go, wow, wow, wow. And then you might ask the question, how did you do this? So you got to go backwards and explain how you did the brush strokes. How you came to this conclusion to end up with this portrait of life, this revelation of the Garden of Eden. But you have to know how you got there. In order to get there, you have to know how you got there. So Moses wrote the book of Genesis, did not exist in that time. Was shown visions, pictures. Every picture is 1,000 words. Put it into words. Isaiah, 66 chapters of visions. Jesus born, crucified, take back the planet, the restoration of many desolations of generations in this time. You got my glasses? restoration of generations. Just like my grandson here, he's always trying to be helpful, but sometimes he's a little too helpful. If he sees I don't have my shoes on, he'll run back in the bedroom and grab my shoes. And Papa might not need his shoes at this time, but he wants to be helpful. He's always looking for something to help out with. So new generation just want to help the generations of old, where it says the older will serve the younger. Well, that's the way the grandfathers and grandmothers were, to help serve the younger, which means help them to mature. But the younger will not mature unless they respect the elders that have the revelation of fatherliness, motherliness. That's the revelation of Jesus Christ. Who is my mother? Who is my brothers? Who is my father? In order to hand off the baton, in order for them to walk in his ways. So we're in accelerated knowledge. So let's say today you just woke up and you've been around since 50s, 60s, or 70s, 80s, and you watched all this transpire from the Lost in space and Star Trek, the second generation, and then the Star Wars and all of that, and the elders, the revelation thereof, and it's all pointing towards Earth. So we can go way far out, but it's all about you growing up, becoming the sixth kind, because on the sixth day God created man. But it's the new man. It's the man-child. Type in man-child. It's in the book of Revelation. The new man. Now we're being launched. We are being transformed unto like unto angels. So we have to repeat with a little bit of diversion and to show you the different pictures, because every picture speaks 1,000 words, on how do we get there? How do you get there from here? Okay, like the man says, you can't get there from here. No, you can. Because it's all about the revelation, heart-to-heart connection, and receiving it within, because the kingdom comes within. So the king priest, which is Jesus, and after the order of Melchizedek, the highest priest, Jesus is the king, and now he's the king priest. And Melchizedek was not Jesus. A lot of people, with their carnal minds, think that this guy had no mother, had no brothers, had no father, and they had no idea that there's a lot more going on before Jesus, that there's a high priest in heaven forever and ever, created to help mankind. And his orders were to applicate the sins, which you talked about, to Jesus in the garden. It says his sweat was thick like blood. It didn't say he was sweating blood. It just meant excruciatingly painful to be applicated, so that the priest would applicate the sins to Jesus spiritually. You got to think about that over and over and over. In order for us to beat him, he could not have been whipped, he could not have been beaten. And then he even put the ear back on the soldier, symbolic of Peter, you're not listening to God anymore. But then at one time he says, upon this rock of, build my church, gates of hell will not prevail, because he could hear Daddy's voice, that he was the Son of the Most High God. So all this craziness up until now, and now we have massive crazy of people on stages of the world. And now it's time to unveil. Now it's time to be unwrapped. The two witnesses, now it's time to be unwrapped. And the two witnesses always means an agreement. Two, he sends them out 2 by 2. There's Elijah. Elijah always walked alone until Elisha. So Elijah walked with Elisha for a certain amount of time. And he was the only one who humbled himself to receive the mantle of Elijah. 42 prophets mocked him, said, you bald-headed bleep and bleep. You smack him up, lap him up, trip him up. So Elisha did not do anything except God did. God took two she-bears, 2 girl bears, 2 wise bears, 2 wisdom bears, and mauled all 42 of these guys 4 foundation of 2 witnesses, prophets. Why does it say 4 and 20 elders instead of 24? Because it was a foundation of witnesses. Why is it 144,000 instead of the 13 tribes? Because it's a one God and foundation of a foundation. And we've, in this April, which is, we can call it now, into fruition, the present time, that the foundation, we're already going to be into the 4th foundation, which is 3 4s, 4, 4, 4. Now we're going into the last 4, and you got to cipher that, uncover, to know that's the last 7 years to restore the desolation of many generations. So we talked about Psalm, was it 126, where in the beginning it's the restoration of God's people. So 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. So we're going into this last 7 a little bit early, because we're talking spiritual years, not natural years. We're not talking about biblical times. We're not talking about political times. We're talking about the 3rd day times. It won't totally add up to what you understand because the timing is off. The timing's off because only the people that have the revelation, that have the understanding, that have cemented their relationships. What'd you do to my glasses, son? I don't know about that. Well, this is talking now. Look at that. He sold it. He sold my glasses to the what you call it, to the towel. I don't know. You fix it? So can we fix this? No, not in the natural. You can beat them. You can whoop them. You can turn over the tables. But that's not for us, because those who live by sword die by sword. Those who are supposed to war in the natural are certain types of people. We war in the heavenlies because all we have to do is agree with what God said, past, present, future, and the Psalms lining up to the years. So we're beginning the restoration of many generations after this April time. But in order to conceive it, receive it, you need to believe it in this time. And we call a prayer past tense. So by his stripes we were healed. You claim it is done, then it manifests in the near future as done. So in the present time, such time as this, you're present and be in his presence to be a gift, a present, a gift, in order to preach in this time, speak in this time, to change all times and destinies for God's children. So I guess I got to untie those glasses from a towel. So hey, y'all, we'll queue up another one. Stay tuned. So we have all these angels, all these entities and angels that live in the heavenlies that are trying to free us from the snare of the fowler. It's also in the Psalms. God bless. Like and subscribe.